Video, Purple Political Talk here, and today we're going to be looking at the 2020 presidential election and looking at Donald Trump's pathways towards the presidency. So I made 4 maps for you guys to look at, and we're going to explain them and go through and say what are the kind of scenarios and what things need to fall into place for Donald Trump to win in these different scenarios. So please guys, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications before we start the video, and let's just get started. So I'm going to begin by showing you guys the first map, and I think out of a Trump victory, this is probably the most likely scenario. And even looking at it right now, it looks a little bit unlikely, because, for the most part, the biggest states Trump would have to flip, I guess, or kind of keep in his column are Arizona, Wisconsin, Florida, and North Carolina. Joe Biden could win, the rest of the other swing states that are not considered a little bit more Republican, and I think Donald Trump would be fine. In this scenario, I think the only thing he would have to do is make his economic message be heard in Wisconsin and try to fix amends with the people in Arizona and Florida about coronavirus and all these different things. And I think it's interesting to see that the state of Arizona is actually narrowing up a little bit. There was a point in time where Biden was leading constantly by around 8 to 10 points. And now we're more at a point where he's leading by only 4 or even 3 or 2 even in some polls. Which, in an election, I think a 3 to 4 point lead is not the same thing as an 8-point lead, because the margin of error and all these different things that can change. So, Arizona's actually looking a little bit more better for Trump. If he invests the right time and money into it, maybe he could win it. That's probably the least likely of the states to flip out of this map that we're seeing right now. And with Wisconsin, Florida, and North Carolina, those states can easily go to Trump. It's just enough money and effort. Especially in Wisconsin. Wisconsin, the poll averages are like at 5% right now. But, Donald Trump can easily probably win there if he just plays the right moves, he tweets the right things, and everything just falls into place. This is kind of like the most likely scenario. Nothing too extravagant has to happen. And generally speaking, we're gonna look later on in the video, how losing in one place is, you just have to make it up somewhere else. So let's say Trump loses Wisconsin, then he has to win a state like Minnesota, for example. Something that would offset it and you still win. And if this scenario does happen, that doesn't guarantee Trump a victory because of our faithless electors, who I think will be a very big part of this election. And when elections are this close, that's probably going to become a problem. So that is our most likely scenario for Donald Trump. This is kind of like his starting block. And the most likely, the states that are a little bit more likely to go with him in a victory scenario. Right now, still Joe Biden is doing exceptionally. And unless something very big happens to Joe Biden, Donald Trump should be losing. But that could definitely change. Consider how he's changing his campaign and things like that. So now let's go look and change the tab and go to a sort of a Trump best case scenario, I think. I would call this a Trump best case scenario, I guess, because, is it likely to happen? Probably not. It's looking a little bit unlikely for a Trump best case scenario at this point. But, still it could happen. So I think a Trump best case scenario at this point in time currently looks like 2016 results plus, hold on, I messed up here, plus a New Hampshire. So it would be 310 to 228. So, this scenario is looking a little bit less unlikely. But, generally speaking, what's going to be the hardest states to flip in this scenario? Michigan, you're probably going to have to put in a lot of effort. Arizona, and probably New Hampshire. So, Donald Trump, I think, at this point, has enough resources to where he can flip a state like Arizona. And he also has to, worry about protecting other states. Because, he could go out and win other states, and then he loses others, which makes him lose the election in train. And I feel like this map accurately shows a best-case scenario for Trump, and, the easiest way for him to get there. Honestly, Donald Trump, for this to happen, has to fall, a lot of things have to fall into place. Whether it be a very big Joe Biden scandal, no one will forgive him for, or whether it is very popularity after economy picks up or something like that. This is a map we're going to be able to see. Because generally speaking, what is one of the big areas that we're seeing a lot of red in that we usually don't in our predictions? It's the Rust Belt. So, I mean, Donald Trump is not guaranteed to win the Rust Belt, but I think he maybe even win, like, one of the states. The general Rust Belt, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But still, I mean, it's a thing to look at, and I think this map would be suited for if the Trump campaign were to focus on the Rust Belt, Arizona, New Hampshire, and then whatever else they distribute amongst other swing states. And I think Donald Trump's campaign is going to come down to a point what states they focus on and what states they leave behind. They could easily leave behind 2 or 3 states. And I think I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But I'm going to show you guys specifically what I'm talking about. But Donald Trump, this scenario would be if he kind of does a miracle happens for him. Because right now, getting a little bit over 2016 is not looking like a good scenario for him. Because, I mean, where else can he pick up from? Colorado, Virginia, and Nevada, it's going to be really hard for him to do. But, I mean, it's still a possibility. So, let's go to our other map. We have the 279, 259 scenario. So, this scenario is a little bit far-fetched. And I feel like this scenario could actually happen in this one instance. So, what if the suburbs start flipping and there's a lot of economic growth in the United States? So this map looks a little funky because some states are filled in and then others that usually are filled in when those states are not. So I would say, first of all, with the suburbs, Nevada, Colorado, and Virginia, those states could easily flip. I mean, or at least get closer. I would say, like, in a best-case scenario for Donald Trump, this could be a pathway to the presidency. It wouldn't be a blowout margin, but, I mean, let's say, let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's say that he can only flip, let's suppose he can only flip Virginia. And this is being a little bit far-fetched, but then he also gains, let's say Florida and North Carolina, for example. So, at this point in time, he's also doing a little better than 2016. But let's give Florida and North Carolina to the president. So right now, this is the Rust Belt scenario, and he would be losing. But let's just give him Florida. So the suburbs thing would be looking like the map I just showed you. So I think a little bit more like realistic is Colorado and Virginia with the suburbs. And I mean, not that the suburbs are going to flip anytime soon, but I mean, Donald Trump has been pushing a lot of the defund the police movement in a lot of places. And with a lot of these politicians, I mean, in Oakland, the mayor's house got raided by Black Lives Matter and defund the police people. I just read it in the news a couple minutes ago, and that idea getting into people's head, especially in the suburbs, that someone might come into your house and steal your stuff, and they would just want to defund the police. Not that, that would certainly happen, and I mean, that probably would never happen, but the Donald Trump campaign is trying to push that message, which realistically, indeed, will help win the election in these areas. Will that ever happen? I don't think so. So my prediction still stands where I have it, my prediction right now, what is it? It's this, I guess, these states, this, and this. So this is my prediction, my real prediction, as of right now, but I mean, we're talking about pathways for Donald Trump, so the suburbs could be a pathway to him, but that could cost him other places. So, this is our suburbs map. And our final map is another map we've seen thrown around a lot, and it actually gives us the same electoral vote count. So, this map right now is a big one people are throwing around. So, essentially, Donald Trump wins, he loses Arizona and Michigan, but wins Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. So, this one is also pretty realistic compared to the middle two. This one is realistic in the sense that Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are 2 states that, if the cards move right, I mean, they're pretty close to flip or actually retaining to Donald Trump because of the economic growth after COVID and all these different things that really do affect Rust Belt voters. And this map could be a little bit more realistic due to the fact also that Arizona flips. I think Arizona is a state that is pretty much going to flip for the Democratic Party almost in any scenario. And I think Trump easily can make this happen. I think actually this map with Arizona flipped is the most likely, but that would be him losing. But in a him winning scenario, probably this would be a very good map for Donald Trump. And I think, honestly, the pathways to the presidency for Donald Trump are really small right now. I mean, these map, I think 99% of them, they look a little bit far-fetched. And I mean, the fact of the matter is they kind of are. But it still does have a possibility of happening. So I mean, these maps, they show how Donald Trump, like, what is his electoral game? Because there's going to be a point where on election day they're going to have to play around with the map, and there's going to be a point where he actually loses. And I feel like, honestly, Donald Trump losing at this point is almost a given. Is it completely called? Is it like completely final? No, because things can constantly change. I mean, the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton was leading by almost like 6 points before the convention. What happened in the after the convention? Things started to narrow up. Okay, but now here's one thing I wanted to talk about. So I just talked about all these maps, looking at it in a way that it's what we know, what's a given, and stuff like that. What is presented to us directly. Now we also must consider that there is a big group of people who are not saying they're not voting for Trump or stuff like that. Believe it or not, there's actually a lot more people than people may think, and people just say that this is a thing that the right says. So I'm unbiased, and I think is actually really true. And I feel it's honestly because of the fact that a lot of people get like berated for supporting the president, or they lose their jobs for supporting the president. So, I mean, that type of stuff does happen a lot in the United States during these very heated political days. And I think a lot of people might not want to share that. So, I mean, with the silent voters or silent majority, as Donald Trump says, I think the states that could easily be impacted, Wisconsin, Florida, North Carolina, even Arizona at this point, this is looking like actually no, I flipped them for the wrong party. My bad. A Trump silent majority scenario at this point in time kind of looks a little bit like this. So essentially, 2016, and that might be something that might happen. I feel like honestly that's a thing to watch out for. But then also, I mean, in these pathways for Donald Trump, you have to consider that Biden's leading here, here, here. He's leading there. He's also leading there. He's leading there. He's also leading here, and he started to lead a little bit here. So I mean, the map for Donald Trump looks completely horrendous. Now, the pathways are still open for Donald Trump in these different ways that would take different circumstances. But I mean, as of right now, the realistic presidential map looks like this. But Donald Trump still has a possibility. And like, there's a lot more possibilities, and we can play around with the electoral map for days. But I mean, the four things I really showed you, they're really are the Trump scenarios at this point, and they're what are most likely. And even in a far-fetched scenario, that's something that might happen. So keep these scenarios in mind as things change. Because look, this scenario might look like completely bogus. I mean, and for the most part, it pretty is, because it's a very specific scenario. The suburbs flipping. But I mean, there's other scenarios which are a little bit more likely for Trump. Donald Trump essentially has to fix coronavirus, and his popularity because of that, and the economy, and he would be set. I would say that before the COVID-19 pandemic and kind of all the effects of it, which include, I would say COVID-19 also affected the Black Lives Matter movement, which really hurt the president. That also affected, all the economy and stuff like that. Donald Trump, I would say, was at a very good position of even almost winning the election, and he was a lot closer than he is now. Before COVID, he was easily at a pretty much, I would say, the 269 scenario. It was a very tight election. But I mean, COVID-19 just kind of swung it all the way down to the Democrats. And I think at this point in time, Donald Trump is very unlikely to win. Nonetheless, I think he still does have a chance. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up. Like and subscribe to turn on post notifications to get notified when I post my next video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.